I want to grow. I don't know how to do it by myself, so please
Right.
help me. Or I just need this safe space to vent because I don't want to vent to the people close to me. I don't want to be a burden to the people close to me, or whatever. It's supposed to be a positive thing, not something, to avoid or wait till the last minute because the last minute can be too late.
To the last minute can be too late. That is a word, okay? That is a word. Like, and I just even thinking about it now, I'm like laughing and smiling because I'm like, I really had this motto in my head that suffering in silence was the best way for me. Like, and if no one knows your business and knows or see you at your lowest, you'll be fine. Being at your lowest is also showing your most authentic self. And let me not say being at your lowest, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable is literally when you are met with your most authentic self.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And I definitely suffered in silence. My silence lasted several years that it didn't need to last, all because I felt like, well, I didn't want to be a burden on my family. Number one, I know how protective my family is,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew what I wanted at that time. So I don't want your protection right now. I guess now that I'm like thinking of it about it out loud, I don't want your protection because you're probably right. But this is what I want in the moment. My ego was speaking for me rather than my higher self. I
Yeah.
was living through my ego. I wasn't, tapped in at that time. But it was very painful. It was dark. It was lonely. And
Right.
even like um, the beginning of my healing journey, I started to recognize that there's no reason to do that because although we all have different experiences, we all have the same emotions. We all are on this journey of life trying to be
There you
happy
go.
and accomplish things. And so we have emotions for a reason. They're supposed to be triggers to learn from. Let's feel those things. Let's understand them, break them down. Let's share them so that
Exactly.
other people who feel dark and lonely and really isolated like I do, they don't have to feel alone, so they can know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, suffering in silence is not always good.
That's
So
why mental health is so taboo, especially in the Black culture, because when we are faced with those emotions that we feel are the unknown or negative, we don't share it.
yeah,
Generations and generations of us not being authentic and vulnerable left us to be like, oh, you're feeling that? That's impossible, which led to mental health being so taboo in our culture.
yeah, yes. So let's bring it to light. We have positive experiences. I also went to therapy. I didn't have a black therapist, but she was like she had some color. I don't know where she was from. But either way, it doesn't matter. She helped me on my journey, but I still wasn't open at that time to change, I think. Like she made really good points, but I think I was still at a time in my life where I wasn't ready to accept full accountability. I just had this vision in my head like, I put in so much time for this, I put in so much energy for this. This is gonna happen. you know?
Yo, you be having a therapist and investing. I always say having a therapist is a whole investment for yourself because that ego will get checked so hard because you think you know everything and you like this stranger don't know shit about my life, so I'm just gonna sit here and let them talk. And then when they start reading you to filth and your ego is like trigger, like holy shit, you are talking to me like you've been on my journey the entire time, like
Yeah.
like you've been watching my life like it's a movie.
Like, how you
Yes.
know that?
Right. That ego will be checked, but that's what's supposed to happen. And that's just with life, with the spiritual journey, with your career, your passion, your occupation. You gotta check that ego. You have to check that ego because that ego, the bigger it gets, the more it will ruin your future.
Oh yeah. Definitely. And I think that a lot of that comes from like control. Like your ego thinks that you can control things. Your ego thinks that it knows what's best, but really your intuition, your gut, like those inner feelings know what's best rather than I guess always thinking logically, you have to find a nice balance between using your heart and using your mind, I think. And you
Yeah.
have to allow those clear thoughts to come through, and the things that keep like nudging you, you can't you can't ignore those. They're nudging you for a reason. Like I told you, I went to my therapy when I was in Illinois, and then I moved to California, and then I was really isolated. I didn't have my family, I didn't have anybody, I didn't go to a therapist. I just was in my dark hellhole bubble of like misery,
Literally.
and I just lost my train of thought. Uh, we were
You're an
talking
air
about therapy.
sign.
Oh,
It happens.
therapy, yes. I was in my little hellhole, and it's like, okay, so you didn't really take the signs that the therapist was giving you. I'm kind of tying it back into spirituality and the universe. That's when things kind of started to align, because it's not just about you. You have to pay attention to everything in the universe, and I know that you believe that too. But
I
so like you're not listening to your therapist, you're not listening to these signs, you're unhappy, you're not listening to your emotions. So we're going to pull the rug under you. We're going to make you change.
Yep.
You can't hide from this anymore. And
Yep.
so like uh I lost a lot of weight, I passed out, whatever. I had to go through my traumatic experiences, and I ended up in the hospital a couple times where it was like, okay, something needs to change. Like, I'm not about to die over this relationship. I'm not about to die for being unhappy. Like, I have a whole lot of life to live. I'm going to choose happiness. So, what do I need to do? And I think that that was the universe's way of like kicking my ass to change. And so, I don't regret, although, I went through a negative chapter, I don't regret it. It
Yeah.
sucks that it lasted a long time.
Yeah.
But I think those experiences teach us, and we grow from them. Like, I don't want to be the
Absolutely.
angry, bitter black woman because my last relationship
Yeah.
was terrible, and I don't want to hate all men because that's
Oh,
crazy.
oh, oh,
I don't want to live that life. I want to be happy and
oh.
know that everyone's not terrible. So I don't know if your traumatic, your experiences were like that too, but that's what I learned from
Oh
mine.
no, they're very similar. And my sister and I have talked about this before because we both have our very dark moments, and those dark moments will put you in check to where you're like, you know what? I never want to go back to the darkness. I never want to go back to that deep dark. And there's nothing wrong with that because we all have our light and we all have our shadow, but darkness and not being able to see your shadow is just full-blown darkness. That's when shit gets real and you have to get out of that. And the moment that you do, I'm telling you, it's only up from there. It's only up from there because you are not going to want to go back to that darkness. You are
No,
not going to want to go back to a space where you do not see yourself at all.
no. And then it makes it easier for you to say no and be like,
Yep.
no, no,
Yep.
my peace is what I need. No.
And you start protecting your peace. You start setting those boundaries and sticking to them. You start editing the access, whoever has access to you. You start doing all of that because you like, hell no, it won't go. I am not going back to the darkness.
No, if that makes me a bitch in your eyes, whatever, that's
Oh
fine.
yeah,
But if
right.
you knew me or you knew where I came from or took the time to understand whatever, you would recognize why it's so important to me. But we talk about a lot of heavy things. And I know that.
Like it's nothing.
And
This
I
is part of the
appreciate you.
journey. This is a perfect illustration. Like when you go through all of that and you know that you are, because you know your work and you're comfortable talking about that. And that was also my main goal in life, and my other like soul purpose is to continue to tell my story. Everyone's stories are unique. Everyone's stories are different, but for some reason, I know my story. I always felt and believe my story will uplift others, will motivate others because of the things I've been through. Like
Yeah.
I was in the rough. Like for 7 years, I was living in an apartment where the Bloods was on one side and the Crips was on the other, and they are their territory mark beef mark was literally in our apartment. So I remember sleeping on the floor, dodging bullets, because bullets don't have no name. I learned that at a very young age, that bullets don't have no name. From struggling, helping my mom out because she was struggling and sick. Like, it was just all that stuff that happened to me while I was growing up is who I am today. And when I tell my story, people look at me and they're like, you went through all of that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And I'm here I am. I'm like, that's my glory. That's my glory. That's my shine right there, is that I'm still here. All that, and I'm still here because that means I defeated every single obstacle.
Yeah. And I think that instead of running from like those dark times, those moments, and just trying to forget them, I'm, like I said, I'm glad that we are bringing them out in the open because I didn't write it down, but if people haven't looked at the number for depression, depression is one of the highest ranked statistics nationally, especially in teens and men, and it's really sad. And today is my cousin's birthday. Happy heavenly birthday. But he committed suicide last year, and that happened right after I started to work on Eunoia. So I felt like he is a big part of my motivation. I channel like he is why I'm here speaking and being able to find my strength to be vulnerable, because I don't like being vulnerable. I don't even like attention. But
I was like that. I was like, please steer your eyes this way. I didn't like people staring at me, because that's how empaths work. Like, it was times where I hate when people stare at me. I will literally, like, I used to get bugged, like, why are you looking at me? Because I felt like when people stared at me, they were reading me. And that's only because I knew that when I was looking at people, I was reading them. So I'm like, how dare you look away?
Man, maybe that's why I hate when people look at me.
I'm telling you.
I've always hated eye contact. First of all, eye contact is very intense for me. So like, I'm always like, look and look away. Look, I probably look super crazy to the people I'm talking to, but y'all don't know. Y'all are like penetrating my soul.
Yes, and that's literally how I felt. I literally felt like you were like reading me to filth just by looking at me alone. And I have a poem, and I still have it in my phone, called Shy Eyes, that I wrote back in, oh my gosh, like 2015. And the poem literally was just about how vulnerable I get when people stare at me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's not just me. I love this spiritual journey because my whole life, although I'm very loved, I have very loving people, supportive people around me.
Right.
I've still always felt not really understood on like a deeper level, and I'm realizing now it's more on a spiritual level. And I've always kind of felt like the black sheep and like, oh, you're crazy. No, that couldn't happen. No, you're crazy. But now I'm not crazy.
Yep.
I'm realizing I'm just, I wasn't open to it before, but I'm more open to the spiritual side of things, the universal side of things, and just being open to whatever the world and has for me, rather than thinking it can only be this one certain way. Otherwise, you're crazy. This, that can't happen. So I'm glad that we can share some experiences and those things.
You were speaking my life earlier, so
we've been speaking our lives.
This is what happens with me, and that's why I love telling my story, because not only am I helping and motivating others, I'm also confirming to others that what they're experiencing, because I don't like to use the term normal, because nothing is normal. Like, normality is unrealistic as fuck.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's mutual, even though we're all unique, even though we have our unique individuality, we all still experience the same journey some way, somehow. We're very mutual.
Yes. And I hope that everyone can recognize that, and it allows them to slowly open up more and truly like learn to love themselves for who they want and what they think the outside world wants. So,
There we go.
I know you're into astrology. So let's talk about that a little bit. How did you get into astrology and why is that so important to you?
I got into astrology back in Tumblr days. So let's give it 2015, 2014, 2015. I got into, because I always love, I am a proud Gemini, okay? Everybody be like, oh, I don't like saying that I'm a Gemini because then I get all these reactions and these negative comments. And I was the type that I was like, yeah, I'm a Gemini, so what? And like, I just loved embracing who I am. And even though I had a low self-esteem, I was always proud of being a Gemini just because I know that that represented me. So it started with Tumblr. I loved doing the horoscopes, looking at my horoscope. My mom did too. I grew up with that because my mom literally would look at her horoscope daily, all the time, back when they used to be on magazines and newspapers. And it just started from there. So it was like literally embedded in my childhood. And then when Tumblr was popping, I loved going and looking to see, okay, did this match my, this is match my Gemini ways? Let me see. But also, I wanted to, again, overcome that stereotype, the negative connotations and the negative stereotypes of Geminis. And I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do this? What can I do? How did this negative impact of Geminis even come about? Started researching, of course, natural researcher as I am, sociologist as I am. And the more that I was researching, I seen, oh, wait, hold on. I have a moon. Wait, okay. I have Mars. I have a Mercury too. And it just went on from there. It was just unraveling. And I loved dipping into the rabbit hole of astrology. And it went on from there. I didn't take natal chart consultation seriously and actually like creating services until last year. Honestly, last year I took it seriously. But the year before, 2 years ago, I was doing it to make ends meet and to eat because there was times that I didn't have enough money, meaning when I was the broke college student. There was times that I was always on campus, working hard, doing my work because I did not leave the campus until my work was done, until I did everything I needed to do. And I'm like, I need to eat. I don't have any money. So when I was studying astrology, I'm like, well, I can put this to use. I went into this center for Black African American students called the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for us to hang out, comfortable, safe space for us. And I went in there, I would go in there and I'm like, who wants to be read to fill? We'll come in and I'm like, all right, what's your name, date of birth, location, time you were born? And I would just read people to filth. And the thing is, while I was doing that, I didn't feel like, and I didn't know, like it didn't hit me and
Hold on
register.
1 second.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, my computer. I don't want my computer to die.
No, you're fine.
I just got an announcement. That
No
was
worries.
terrible. Okay, sorry. Okay, you
Yeah, no,
started
you're
doing
good.
that.
You're good. So, it didn't register to me that I was doing natal chart readings. I was doing them for free at the time, and then people were like, hey, you read me to feel so good, I'm just gonna pay you. And then our people, we always look out for each other. They'd be like, nah, you just did all that labor reading me to feel, here's some, what's your cash app? So it went from there, and it was fun. It felt good because people had a sense of knowing of themselves, and I felt like I was the person that was holding the mirror. The mirror is their natal chart,
Yeah.
and the individual was just looking at themselves. And I was helping them to embrace who they are and all of their flaws and all of who they are. And that's literally how it started. It went from, it's just I'm telling you, and I always tell people, you think that it's this magnificent story of like, oh, it started at this time. I started doing this at this time. No, on it, because when I look back, I'm like, no, this was my whole childhood. From my mom doing it to Tumblr days when I was saving and looking for, okay, what's going to happen for me this week?
Yeah.
To wanting to break the stereotype and research why Geminis get the most hate, because honestly, I feel like none of the stereotypes fit a Gemini. And I started doing more research. The research led to me unfolding the knowledge of astrology. Then from that point on, I just went to doing that. I stopped when the pandemic happened. We couldn't go on campus anymore. But even before that, when I got into, I was doing it all undergrad. Whenever I needed money to eat, I would do the readings, and then people would just pay me on Cash App. And it was like $15, like $10, $15. And I read their whole natal chart. So I was definitely doing a disservice for myself at that time. But I was just like, I just need something to eat. I need some money that can get myself something to eat. It was just survival for me. And then I was like, you know what? I need to take this seriously. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I am a Gemini. I don't like sitting and being bored. I like my mind to be stimulated. So I was like, let me go ahead and continue to dabble in astrology and do more research. Yeah. Then I was like, okay, well, let me put that research to use and just practice on my friends. But even when me practicing on my friends, they're tipping me. And I'm like, am I that good? Okay, well, let me go ahead and do it. I'm like, let me go ahead and do it then. And then I have friends as clients. Those were my first clients. Again, not only paying me full, but then tipping me large. And then it just went from there. I took a short break last year, winter season, because I was going through a lot at that time. I was going through a lot of purging at that time and detoxing. And then my aunt passed away. So I took a break and I was like, I'm going to come back stronger than ever. And I'm going to have a link and stuff. So yes, natal chart readings are open. Yay. And yes, they are open. And I literally had a client just recently, earlier this rising, and I have another client after. And I'm being booked and busy, and I love it because I just love being able to help people, again, see themselves for who they truly are and embracing themselves, flaws and all. I don't say weakness, because we're not weak. We all have our own flaws, and we just have things to develop and improve. Not that we're weak, we just have things to develop and improve in. And I solely believe in that. And also, doing those natal chart readings, it helps me to practice my counseling skills, because it gets deep. Chiron, the asteroid Chiron, gets very deep. Saturn gets very deep. When you start getting into those placements, the more you get into them, the deeper it not even exposes, but just opens your eyes to who you truly are. Yeah. And you're like, damn, okay, well, if I stop doing this and see that I'm destined to do this, it'll help me. And it all comes full circle.
So for the people who don't know and are like super new to astrology, what is a natal chart, and what are like, if they want to get started, what are like a couple of basic, or the first couple things they should look into, like the main things?
So a natal chart is a astrological tool that shows and illustrates all the planets, stars, and asteroids that were stationed in union the moment you were born. That is a natal chart in itself. And it is a wheel with 4 angles. The 4 angles includes your midheaven, your ascendant, descendant, and I'm blanking out on the 4th one for some reason. Oh, your IC. We call it the IC, the middle of the sky, but it's the medium coli, which is literally like the midhaven. And yeah, I believe so. I don't know why I'm blanking out, but okay. Okay. I would say that start off with your sun, your ascendant, which is one of the angles. Ascendant and rising is the same thing. So your sun, your moon, and your rising. And it's important to look those three up first, because your sun is who you are. Your sun is literally, so I always say this, as the sun is the head, the moon is the heart. And your rising is your identity.
Okay.
Sun is the head, moon is the heart, rising is identity. And that all three of that together forms you. Now, if you want to get deep into it, for instance, Chiron is your childhood wounds. Looking back into your childhood, your North Node is illustrating who you are in the present or who you can become in the future. Like, those are just examples of how deep it can get. But just to get to the basics of who you are, your sun, your moon, or your rising and ascendant. So
Yeah.
rising ascendant, again, same thing.
I think I like to think of the natal chart, which natal charts and birth charts are the same thing, right?
Are the
They're two
same
different
thing.
terms. Okay.
Natal is just the astrological term, but we call it birth chart. But
Okay.
it's the same thing.
I just want to make sure, because I know when I first started, I didn't realize rising and ascendant were the same thing. I didn't realize that birth chart and natal chart were the same thing. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff.
it is.
But
It is.
I like to think of the natal chart as like a roadmap to your life and
Yeah.
the areas that you're naturally good at, or the natural things that you're supposed to work on. Like you said, they're not weaknesses; they're just things. Nobody's born perfect. We can't all be good at everything. We can't all be the same. So we have different aspects. And like my whole life, I'm a Libra, right? I
Air
hate
sign.
making
Hey.
decisions. I'm always in my head. But I was like the submissive, quiet Libra. I don't like confrontation. But then I realized, oh, my moon is Sagittarius. My North Node is Aries. I have a lot of fire in my chart. That's
So
why I'm
not
so
only
fiery.
are you an air sign, you're a Sag moon, so it makes so much sense why we are so, like, why we connected spiritually, because the moon is also about our emotional instincts, how we deeply feel, the parts of ourselves that we don't normally express out loud. They're all internalized. And for the fact, it's kind of like we have the same heart. Like I said, as the sun is the head, the moon is the heart. So typically, when you do have someone with the same moon sign, you, depending on the degrees and aspects and whatnot, but depending on the degrees and what house it's in, 9 times out of 10 there's going to be a connection there. There's going to be a deep emotional connection and emotional understanding. So makes perfect sense. I did not know you were a Sag moon.
Yes, I'm a Sag moon, Virgo rising, Libra sun, and Libra Venus. We could talk about birth charts later and
Right.
compare. But I think it's important to know, because I didn't really, once I started breaking it down, like I've always loved horoscopes and I always wondered why they were so spot on. But once I started to actually realize what each planet represented and what each house represented and what I was made of, what signs I was made of, I started to understand why I acted certain ways or why I thought certain ways, or, it started to make me make more sense to me. So I fully believe in astrology and all of
I
that.
always
And I know
tell
some people,
people there's levels. That saying there's levels to this shit is literally your natal chart.
yeah. I mean,
Because you have layers.
you
Yes.
said rabbit hole in the beginning, and it's definitely a rabbit hole. You think it's like, oh, I'm just a Libra. Oh, I'm a Libra, Virgo, Sag. Oh, there's asteroids and there's angles and there's
And not
everything.
even that. Like, that's just the surface, because then there is the tropical and then the sidereal. And the sidereal is it's a lot. It's a whole rabbit hole, a whole rabbit hole. But I love it because it not only did it help me to embrace myself as a Gemini. I'm like, here people are calling us two-faced and all type of stuff, when Pisces got two fishes and they are the ones that truly are two-faced. Or we have layers and layers and layers of ourselves within our natal chart. So technically everybody is two-faced. Like, like I'm like, and that's really what kept me going, because I'm telling you, I was destined to break that stereotype and to study why we had that negative stereotype. And then when I seen that natal chart, and it just sparked up this like glow for me, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna dig deep into this.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely want to look into, well, not look into, I'm going to get my natal chart read with you because
Yes,
uh,
yes, me
I want
too.
my natal chart read. So everybody else should link up with you and get their natal chart read, or at least,
Yes.
try to understand it, even if they don't link up with it. I think it's a good place to start if you're feeling lost or if you're just trying to understand things, help try to make sense of things.
if
Um,
you are if you are lost and you don't know what to do with your career or occupation, even if you don't do it just for love, I'm letting y'all know that right now. Don't do it just for love. Don't be asking me about what my seventh house looking like come on, like there's more to life than just the love. What do you want to do with your life? What is your
yeah.
career looking like? Why are you always so angry? Oh, guess what, your Mars is in Aries. Like, do look into yourself and have that mirror. Like, and with my natal chart readings, I will educate you. I also provide affirmations, and then I do the interpretation.
Nice, nice. And so you brought your affirmations back up. I know on your Instagram when you post, a lot of times you link the affirmations to days of the week. Can you like dive
Yeah.
into that a little bit?
Yes, so I have the planetary days of the week. So we have Sunday, which is Sunday. Monday is Moon Day, which I'm a moon baby. I was born on a Monday, full moon in Sagittarius, which is why I'm a Sagittarius moon. See how that works out. Tuesday is Mars Day. Wednesday is Mercury Day. Thursday is Jupiter Day. Good luck. Jupiter is about good luck, goodwill, good fortune. The lucky planet, what we like to call it. Friday is Venus Day, the popular day, and Saturday, which is today, is Saturn Day. And I just decided to, because my love for astrology, I also provide the affirmations with the planets and how they correlate. So, for instance, the sun is about individuality, identity, who you are. So, affirmation, I am blank. That literally is you announcing your sun sign. So, I just decided, why not do a list of 4 affirmations for each day of the week, each planetary day of the week, because that's literally how I move. I move intentionally. If I want to do something about learning or anything, guess what I'm going to do? What day I'm going to do it? Mercury Day, Wednesday, because Mercury is about intelligence and thinking and communication. Oh, you want to get that job? Go ahead and schedule your interview for Jupiter Day, Thursday. Thursday, Jupiter is of good luck, good fortune, success, and money.
Nice.
I wanted to set those affirmations with the planetary days of the week so you know that you're in setting those intentions of that day and being purposeful daily.
I like that because I think living intentionally is very important. You should do everything with a purpose. And I didn't realize that the planets lined up with the days of the week. Like I haven't dove that deep in. So it's nice to know that, well, on this day is probably better for this. And it's just interesting. I love the rabbit hole of astrology. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. Um, I've covered everything that I had and more. Actually, we talked about a lot,
Right. We
a
talked
lot
about
of
some
stuff.
really good stuff. We exposed some gems today.
We did.
So I'm
And
happy.
what is your name? Brown eye,
The brown skin gem.
brown skin gem.
So
Look how that
yes,
tied
that's
in.
good. Go ahead, and if you would like my all of my social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, the brown skin gem, find me there.
Are you there? It looks like we might have lost you. Um, I don't know if you can hear me, but I appreciate you coming. I think we lost her at the end, but it was perfect timing because it was the end of the episode. So I will link her Instagram and all of the ways you can access her on my Instagram, and you'll be able to link to it on this video. Thank you, everyone. I can't wait for next week. Thank you for supporting. Bye.